Well, hi, Mark. All right, so I am going to be reviewing Lucio Fulci's Zombie from 1979 tonight. Um, I am shooting this review in the parking lot of a senior center. There's a house just across the street, and there's one to my left. So I'm going to try to keep my voice down because I don't need to be waking people up in the middle of the night. You know, it's funny, I've always been a pretty big fan of Zombie. Not so much of Lucio Fulci. Now I am. Now Lucio Fulci is my favorite director of all time. So I can tell you what kind of review this is going to be. This is going to be a jacking off the movie review, not a crapping all over the movie review. So if you were hoping for someone to hate on this movie, it's not going to happen here. Hardly at all. It does have flaws, does have issues, plenty of them, I'm sure. The one that it never really bothered me, but I always thought it was kind of silly, is there are some very silly inconsistencies with the firearms in Zombie, like inconsistencies and inaccuracies. And it's in all the old movies, especially the old Italian movies. You know, there's a very obvious one of like unlimited ammo. Like, why does that 6-shot revolver have like 20 shots in it? That's a pretty obvious one. But if you want to get a little more nitpicky into it, why is that bolt-action rifle a semi-automatic rifle? Actually, that's not nitpicky. That's just, why is that a thing? Why? I feel as though they could have made those scenes just as well, making that bolt action actually operate like it's supposed to. And you don't have to be like a gun expert or whatever to notice this crap. It's like, pretty sure that's not how that rifle operates. Pretty sure that's really not how that rifle operates. Not to mention, I think there's way more rounds in that rifle than there probably should be. My guess would be that's like a 5-round internal magazine. Just shoot away. Shoot away all the livelong day in semi-automatic. And then for some reason, somehow, some way, just kind of switching over to bolt action when it's convenient. So that's pretty neat. So yeah, those are a couple of the kind of funny issues that I just kind of see in this movie, and they don't really spoil the experience of the film for me, because frankly, I'm watching this movie for a good time. I don't know, like, I'm not watching this movie to be wowed by the realism. I'm watching this movie for fun. And that's something that this movie definitely is. It's really fun. The gore in this movie is really fun. It's over the top and it's beautiful. You know, some of the acting is really fun. The atmosphere is great. I'm not even going to call it fun. I'm just going to call it great. That's something that all Fulci films have in common, in my opinion. I don't think I've watched a Fulci film with bad atmosphere yet. That's just kind of something that he does really well, is atmosphere. And that's part of the reason why I like his films. Part of the reason why Fulci's my favorite director now is because the atmosphere is just so impeccable. It's so amazing. And it's here too. It's in Zombie. This pretty damn good atmosphere. You know, it gives you a certain feeling. That's funny. You can see the shadow of my water bottle on my hand. That's how I'm getting the camera to stand up right now. It's a water bottle. It's pretty funny. It casts a shadow on my hand. Yeah, no, I love this film. it's kind of funny because now my favorite Fulci film is City of the Living Dead. When I watched this movie for the first time, this was my favorite Fulci film. Over time, it's developed into City of the Living Dead. I just think that's a far more atmospheric film, and you know what? I'll get to that movie when I get to it. Don't even worry about City of the Living Dead. Surely I'll cover that at some point. Because like I said, Fulci is my favorite director. I haven't seen a film from Fulci yet that I straight up dislike. So I'll probably get to most, if not all, of his films. The gore in Zombie is great. The best scene is the eye gouge out scene. As far as gore goes, that's probably the best scene in the movie, though. Probably, because I mean, that movie gives you everything that you want out of that, or that scene gives you everything that you want out of that movie. It gives you some really great gore. Sorry, guys. It gives you some really great gore, and it gives you the most beautiful woman in the movie nude. Call me a perv if you want. She's hot. I'm not sorry. That guy needs to get his car looked at. Holy shit. Yeah, I'm not sorry. She has an incredible body. Unlike old Doughboy over here. But the chick from Zombie that plays the doctor's wife, God, she's hot. Man, is she ever hot. Yeah. I think we get it. I'm gonna stop going so deep into that, but yeah, no, she is smoking. And we also get arguably the best death of the movie out of her with the she's just getting out of the shower and they kind of break the door open and they're pulling her head towards it. That's great. And then you just see it go in the eye. That is brutal. That scene is brutal. It is ridiculous. So yeah, that's a scene that I've always loved. That's probably always been my favorite scene. That might even be my favorite Fulci scene, even though I do love that scene in City of the Living Dead, where like the two teenagers or whatever they were supposed to be are like making out in the car, and out of nowhere they just kind of start, I think they start hearing things, and then they just kind of turn on the headlights and they see this priest hanging in front of them, and then the chick's eyes start to bleed. That actually might be my favorite scene. Her eyes start to bleed and she vomits up guts. That's an amazing scene. I'm talking more about City of the Living Dead than I am Zombie here. I'm sorry, I love that movie. But as far as Zombie goes, I love almost everything about it. The gun stuff does kind of, I don't want to say it reduces the experience for me, because it really doesn't, because it's all just fun. It's all fun. I don't have to take any of it seriously, and that's why I can really look over the acting. I can watch Fulci's Zombie without even looking at the acting and going, well, that kind of ruined it for me because they weren't the greatest actors of all time. They were pretty bad, actually. I don't have to do that for this movie because the acting isn't a negative for me. I would enjoy this movie just as much if the acting were better. I really don't think great acting does a ton for a movie like this, and so the acting being kind of subpar and, you know, Italian doesn't really hurt the experience of the film at all, at least not for me. And I like to think I'm pretty representative of who this movie's going after. This movie's going after the gorehound who loves the 80s, 70s, you know, stuff like that, like late 70s, 80s horror, loves loves gore in their films, loves cheese, is perfectly fine with nothing making sense, perfectly fine with no explanation. Which, by the way, they hardly explain the zombies in this movie at all, which is, again, is something I'm fine with. It's kind of interesting, though. It's interesting to note that the zombies in this film aren't actually virus zombies. They're voodoo zombies, which I think is interesting because post-Romero, everyone was doing the virus. And pre-Romero, no one quite did voodoo zombies like this. These are the most undead-looking voodoo zombies I've ever seen. And as far as we know, I don't think the zombies have some kind of voodoo master. They kind of allude to maybe some locals doing rituals, but it's not like this guy with a sinister plot. And if it is, you don't ever get to know the plot. Just kind of the dead arising. And that's awesome. That's utterly awesome. Just these... That's another thing. The zombies in this movie look great. I love the way the zombies look. Just these undead corpses caked in dirt and rotten flesh, which, let's just never mind the fact that these corpses would be reduced to nothing by now, because a lot of these corpses are supposed to be like the reanimated corpses of conquistadors and stuff, or as they say in the movie, conquistadores. I find that highly amusing, by the way. Maybe that's even the correct way to say conquistadors. But even in, like, American history, we were always taught to say conquistadors. No one ever said conquistadores. So I watch Fulci Zombie, and they're like, oh, the graves of the conquistadores. And I'm like, that's amazing. That is the most entertaining way I have ever heard to say anything, ever. Please say it again. And don't worry, he does. He says it a few times. Conquistador. It just sounds funny. Regardless of if that's the way you actually say it or not, it sounds funny to me. I think it's the conquistadores. I'm a child. As you have deduced by now, at least mentally. Physically, I'm like 2 full-grown men, but mentally I am definitely a child. Conquistadores. I've harped on that far enough. Setting aside the entertaining and amusing way that people speak in this movie. Another thing about this movie is the incredible, the insatiable shark versus topless woman versus zombie scene. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the movie right now. Do it. You won't be disappointed. And if you are, then it's just not your kind of movie. Or even just look that scene up on YouTube. I don't know if YouTube would have it, because it's kind of a wee bit exploitative. Just a tad. Just a little bit. And that's another thing that Fulci does in a lot of his movies. Fulci's a very sleazy director. He really is. And it's saying something. The Zombie isn't even his sleaziest film. And you have mountains of nudity. Just towers of titties. Okay? Straight up. I don't know. I'm trying to think of alliteration words. Wow, alliteration words. I has best grammar. Don't you let anyone tell you different. You know I has best grammar. Fulci does a lot of sleaze. Very sleazy director. I'm trying to think. Probably Cat in the Brain is his sleaziest film. Maybe. Because Murder Rock exists. At least that I've seen. I think I've only seen 10 Fulci films. I still have like 9 more that I need to watch. I actually have one back at the house. I bought the Severin Blu-ray of Demonia recently, so I'm looking forward to checking that out. But yeah, no, this movie's sleazy. And that particular scene, delicious. And I don't just mean the nudity. I mean just the way everything happens. This chick, this female, just decides, hey, I want to go for a swim. Hey, honey, stop the boat here. I'd like to get out and kind of swim around. And he's like, oh, okay. And she just kind of takes her clothes off, and he's whatever about it. Like, he cares not that this woman just pulled her chachas out in front of everybody. And she just, yep, no shame about it. But then she shouldn't have been ashamed. She was a gorgeous woman, but yeah, and she just goes swimming naked with an air pump on her back. Like, she goes full on scuba diving, but without a scuba suit or any suit except for she had panties on. But I that starts the amusing. All right, that starts the scene being insanely amusing. And then she encounters a shark. And I think it actually kind of threw me for a loop the first time I saw it. I was like, that's weird. The shark doesn't really have a place in this movie, in this scene. I'm like, yeah, I guess if you were to put it in any scene, sure, put it in the scuba diving scene. But then you figure out why the shark is introduced. And that is because right then, they introduced the first zombie. Well, not the first zombie, but it's the first zombie that these characters encounter together. It like pops out of a coral reef or something and grabs a hold of the shark. And I think I read this somewhere. Don't quote me on this and correct me if it's not true, please. But I think I had read somewhere that actor was like actually down there with that shark, because I mean, they didn't have any other way to shoot it at the time. He was like putting this fake arm in the shark's mouth, trying to get the shark to bite it. So, props to that guy, because that would be the scariest scene on earth to shoot. But, yeah, no, that scene is so cool. It's so fun. It's so fun, and it's so stupid. I use stupid in a good way. Alright, like, if I were to call Killer Clowns from Outer Space, another film that I'm sure I'll get to at one point, it's stupid, but it's so fun. Okay, I'm not on my Killer Clowns from Outer Space right now. I'm on Zombie. Stay on track. But yeah, and just, again, the way the zombies look, amazing. I love the way the zombies look in this movie. Is it realistic? No, not really. Nothing in this movie is realistic, but they look really cool. They're just kind of wearing these dirty rags and stuff, and they're caked in mud and dirt and rotting flesh. And the blood is very thick and very red, much like most Italian films from the era. And it all works so well if you're into that sort of thing. This movie is a gorehound classic. I 100% recommend this film. If you've never seen Zombie, what are you doing with your life as a horror fan? Oh yeah, another one of those silly kind of inconsistencies and inaccuracies was the revolver that they had. I think I briefly mentioned this earlier, but this guy had a revolver. The ammo seemed to never end until it was convenient for the plot. Which is great. It's not a negative for me, because again, it's just such a fun film, in my opinion. That doesn't excuse these mistakes. Don't get me wrong, these are mistakes. However, I think they're they're just very small mistakes, in the sense that I don't care about them. And I think if you're watching this movie, you won't necessarily care about them either, because if you're watching a movie called Zombie, or depending on where you are in the world, Zombie 2 or Zombie Flesh Eaters, If you're watching that movie, you probably don't care a whole ton. Let's be totally honest with ourselves and each other. You probably don't care a whole ton. And that's good, because you'll have more fun that way. One of my buddies does not like this movie. Well, you know what? Honestly, none of my buddies, no one that I know is really into Fulci the way that I am. I show Fulci to people and they're like, yeah, no, his movies kind of suck. My best buddy, guy who's in the videos, he I think he likes Fulci okay, but not near as much as I do. And I'm sure he didn't like this movie as much as I did, which is a good thing, because this is the one that I'm reviewing without him. Actually, I'm probably going to review a lot of Fulci films without him, because I know I enjoy them to a much higher degree than he. So he's not going to be like, hey, what the hell, man? You reviewed Lucio Fulci's Zombie without me? How could you? It's not like that, because he does not care. Guaranteed. Now, if I was reviewing The Patriot without him, I think we'd be in some shit. I think we'd be in some trouble then. He loves that movie, as do I. But, no, Fulci Zombie. I think I'm just going to wrap it up here. It does have issues, which is why I'm not going to give it a 10. On my pure enjoyment scale of this movie is probably a 10. But I cannot in good conscience give this movie a 10. I don't believe this movie's a masterpiece. This movie has plenty of problems, plenty of troubles regarding the acting, regarding the realism, regarding the inconsistencies. But if you are a gorehound like me, who loves old Italian cinema, who loves the tropes, who just loves everything about this stuff, who loves Fulci especially, you're going to love Zombie. If you haven't seen it already. And if you haven't seen it already, I ask, why are you watching my review before you watch the movie? Sure, come back here and watch the review. Even though I'm saying this now, after I already gave the full review. My bad. But for sure, watch this movie. Again, if you're a fan of Fulci, or if you're a fan of gore or Italian cinema, or even a horror fan. If you're a horror fan and you're kind of undecided on the whole thing, maybe watch this movie. And I think this movie would clarify very well if you like this type of film or not. I think that would very much so make it instantly clear to you, well, do I like gory, old school Italian cinema? And if you don't like this movie, I'd say you probably wouldn't like most Fulci, because this movie is very representative of his work. For me, that's a good thing. For others, it's not, but that's very much so a plus in my book. But yeah, like I said, I won't give this movie a 10. If I was rating it specifically, or not specifically, but exclusively on my enjoyment, my personal enjoyment of a film, it would certainly be a 10. I don't really feel comfortable doing that, because then there would be a lot of movies that would be 10s thrown in with actual masterpieces. Like, why is Zombie and Alien on the same level? They're not. So I'm not going to give Zombie a 10. What I am going to give it, I think, is a 7.5. I think a 7.5 is right where I'm at, which is kind of funny, because I think that's what I gave The New Mutants. By the way, that does not mean that I enjoy this movie as much, or that I enjoy The New Mutants as much as I enjoy this movie. New Mutants is by far the lesser favorite of the two. But they do get the same rating. But I mean, there are plenty of, there are 10s that I enjoy more than other 10s. So I think you guys get the gist. It's not just because I rate something the same doesn't mean I enjoy it the same. Zombie is one of my favorite horror films of all time. It's going to stay that way. The gore in it's magnificent. The nudity ain't bad either. My lord, the ladies in this movie are gorgeous. And you know, the overall atmosphere, like I said, the soundtrack is awesome. I can't believe I haven't talked about that yet. I love the soundtrack of this movie, and it's actually really funny. At a couple of points, it kind of has like I don't know, man, like it fits so well, so well. Like even if I didn't know what was going on in the scene, if you played that soundtrack for me, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's like desert island music. That's like tropics music instantly. Like that's going to be a fun desert island scene where they're on the water, or you know, something like that, like palm trees, beaches, and sharks come to mind. So yeah, I think we're going to end it there. If you haven't seen Zombie, what the hell are you doing? Why are you even watching this video if you haven't seen Zombie? Go watch Zombie. Go do that. It's a whole lot more entertaining than my ugly mug. All right? Go watch Zombie. You have no excuse. I look like I'm about to lecture you like you're a disappointment to your mother and I. I hope you know that. I can't believe that you went to Billy's house and got drunk. You are a disappointment to your mother and I. Wash the dishes and watch Zombie. Good night, guys. I'll see you on the next one.